Hello and welcome to Astrology and Cinema in Real Life. It is my great pleasure to welcome Philip to this episode. He's going to be talking about one of his favorite biopics, Man on the Moon. And Philip, I'm just so happy to see you, and I'm so happy with all your great news. And I'm very sorry about your YouTube channel. I mean, all that work that you've done, but it is for me, it's going to be a lot of fun being on the other side, interviewing you instead of you interviewing me. So I'm really excited to have you. So thank you for joining.
Well, absolutely an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast, especially to share on such cool subject matter. I actually, as a perseverant Capricorn, have started a new YouTube channel where I've uploaded our priorly recorded video about your brilliant book,
Oh,
Zeus
thank
on the
you.
Loose, as well as a couple of other interviews. So maybe I can give you the link to that YouTube channel, and anyone interested can join the new space. We'll see how it goes.
Okay,
But
and
great
we'll be sure to put the
focusing on
link in
other
for your
things.
new channel as well, in the description, so people can just hop over and visit you. And YouTube has a new collaborative button as well, so I think that might help. And I am
Oh,
really pleased that you persevered. I mean, it must have been absolutely devastating to lose your YouTube channel. I can't imagine. You had so many
well,
brilliant videos there. So,
I must say, like, just to keep it short and in a nutshell, but there's a powerful gem here, I feel like, for the audience. And that is that, yeah, I did start my YouTube channel in 2011. I didn't actually record my first astrology horoscope to 2012, but I started doing regular reports from 2015 onwards, and interviews of loads of fantastic people like yourself, a couple of interviews, two or three, from 2017 all the way through. So I had a really great back catalogue of content, and to lose it was devastating. However, one must see that there's silver linings to be had. Although I've started another YouTube channel, I've still got a flavour for making the content. Where can the skills be transferred? Where can I relay the energy and recognize that that was a training wheel experience for the next thing? And so I encourage people to not be deterred if they lose something, and to see that there is always an opportunity before us.
that's a really good way of looking at it. And I'm glad. I'm like I said, I'm really glad that you've worked through it. And you have other good news. Do you want to tell us about your other good news?
Yes, fantastically so. I became a parent for the first time just over a year ago to beautiful young man Asterix, who is now 15 months. And he had a baby daughter. I had a baby daughter. He had a baby sister join him in this world only as we record this 12 days ago. And her name is Calliope, named after the wisest of the nine muses who inspired all the musicians and artists with her dear, rich voice.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Many, many congratulations, Philip.
Thank
Okay, so let's go on to the movie because I can't wait to hear what you say about Jim Carrey in Man on the Moon. Brilliant soundtrack as well. Good old REM. Maybe a bit more my generation than yours, but
we
fantastic theme
actually
song.
had that song came on in the birthing process for our daughter Calliope, on the playlist. So
Oh,
very appropriate that we choose this fantastic film, which is very heartfelt for me for a long time. Jim Carrey is probably my most like, I feel that we always associate with our favorites in certain ways, with regards
absolutely.
to movies. I feel like we cast ourselves upon them because they are the fitting canvas for our own portrayal, to be able to see maybe our blind spots, or maybe some of our most brilliant parts of ourselves that we are learning to accept or digest.
Yeah. Well, I talk a lot about this in my book, Mirror, Mirror, and I encourage the readers, if you're a fan of one of these movies or one of these actors or real life people, have a look at your synastry in it because there will be connections. Um, and my other guests have, realized, wow, just that what you just said, that there are these connections that can't be accidental. That they're resonating something in us that we recognize, I think. But tell me why you like this film so much.
Well, just before I bridge to that, you'll find this very interesting. The reason why I picked up upon this, archetypes that we project upon and feel that we connect with, is because when I was in England, year four, at school, which is the age of about 10 years old, 9 till 10 years old. Was probably my favourite school teacher out of all of our time. His name was Mr. Morton, and I think he went on to be a headmaster. But he had a guitar and he played songs to all of our names. Regardless, there was this one particular thing where he said, choose your favourite character from a movie or book and portray them and be like a bit of a canvasser or politician to say why this person's deserving to go forward to this next stage. And so I picked Jim Carrey because for me, that I really resonated with the caricature of him. And so I felt like, as a teacher, they were using this to find out more about our characters because there's a certain few archetypes which we would fit into, and that would help them as teachers figure out how we would work in their classrooms. And so I thought that was really interesting because I certainly have always resonated with this gentleman. And this was a film which was a little bit more mature, and I didn't get into until later years. I didn't know who Andy Kaufman was until I got into this film. And yeah, it's such a heartfelt, gentle movie with a lot of laughs. It goes deep into like serious matters, but yet it's also so ridiculous at the same time. So you get a lot of boxes ticked.
Did you watch any episodes of Taxi? It was really popular when, I was at university. We used to never miss an episode of that. But he was so funny as Latka Gravis, I think his name was, in Taxi. And as you mentioned before we started, Danny DeVito's also in this, and Courtney Love. Is that right? Courtney Love.
Yes.
And you wanted to mention those characters too. But let's look at
Jerry
Andy
Lawler.
Kaufman.
Yeah, so I did know Taxi in the UK when I was younger. They'd have Taxi on, but I wasn't really into it. But I do know Frasier, and I know that Frasier, that character, was in Taxi, and so that was my connection to knowing of threading those together. And Danny DeVito was in it. He was in the movie, and I remember they played a massive role in on the Taxi set together. But Courtney Love was also a very powerful character in my growing up because obviously Kurt Cobain was a really big deal and she was his partner. And her in this role with Jim Carrey as the protagonist from an audience member in the wrestling crowd, she was such a good actress. She really fit the role because the really brilliant thing about this movie is that you could really feel that people were channeling the characters. They were embodying the role of the character. And professional wrestling played a major part in the movie because Jerry the King Lawler, which was one of the biggest wrestlers for decades, and in Memphis, he was a major part of the movie, and Jim Carrey had to wrestle Jerry the King because Andy Kaufman wrestled Jerry the King Lawler in real life, and wrestling is pantomime. And so it's channeling, and so is acting. And so it really exuded this quality of embodying a certain character, which I really love.
Mm. Okay, well, I mean, the lucky thing about this is we have a timed chart for Andy Kaufman as well as Jim Carrey. Now, one of the things, because Mirror Mirror has over 100 biopics, is with so much data, it can be a challenge to get accurate data. But sometimes I have to use noon charts, and I always tell people, don't, dismiss noon charts because there's still important information in them. But we have a time chart with Andy Kaufman, and as you were speaking, and I was kind of struck by a lot of the oppositions that were in here. I mean, look at that Pluto opposite Mercury. I mean, how about that for somebody who has to think on their feet a lot, who was known for all his tricks that he used to play, and there's even a conspiracy theory that he's not really dead, that he's tricking us. So I think it's really quite
I think
important.
That's a really very interesting point that you make there, Alex, because firstly, we know Mercury, the trickster in itself, is able to pull the wool with great theatrics over the eyes of anybody. But with this opposition to Pluto, which is the great deceiver, if you could say so, one could, if anybody was going to fake their death, this would be the aspect that could be pronounced through such a thing. the not to take too much of a detour, as an occultist, we know that actually there is a potential that many people fake their death in the walk of fame, and that gets the opportunity to make more money and part of their contracts too. And yet this was a long time ago, so this would have been one of the earlier ones of this occurring. But I feel that maybe potentially this happens a lot in the modern day. But back to the logistics of this chart and Andy and the film. Um, with that Mercury in Aquarius, it's like he is really feeling into what the audience wanted, and this is what Andy was all about. It was like, how can I dupe the audience? How can I catch them out? How can I pull the wool over their eyes in a way that allows them to feel humored or got?
Mm. Well, that was his main trick, wasn't it? That was he was always doing that. But what do you make of that Saturn conjunct the moon in Virgo?
Well, I guess there's to be able to do to really clown someone, you can't be in a compassionate stance too
Mm,
much, because you in my eyes, because you'll be thinking, oh, what about their feelings? What about this? What about that? That's not to say that humor isn't medicine and to shock someone in a way isn't medicine, but you have to be slightly stoic and detached to be able to perform such a trick. But I think, just to give a little step back from that as an explanation, if you were to shock someone and at first they're a little bit annoyed by it, because I think that, for instance, I'll just give an example. If I was to walk around the corner at my mum and go boo, she'd go away at first, and she'd
mhm.
be a bit annoyed. But after all, she'd be like, "Ah, you," what kind of thing? And because you see yourself
Mm,
when you're human, you get to witness yourself, and you see how silly everything is. And so there's medicine there, and that's what Andy knew. But
mm.
people might get angry first before they figured that out for themselves.
And there's also that idea that comedians, like I think about Robin Williams, just because they're funny people doesn't mean they're always funny people. That they don't have a serious side. And I don't know too much about Andy Kaufman's, if he suffered from depression. That's really not for us to judge. But what I want to say, is that there is being a comedian, a stand-up comedian, is hard work. And I think that one thing that the Saturn Moon conjunction in this setup might mean is that he's not going to allow himself to get all emotionally involved. Kind of like what you were saying, there is like a standoffishness with Saturn conjunct the Moon. That kind of like what you did with your YouTube channel. You plow on and you keep going, and you don't get wrapped up in things. Um, I was also struck by his nodal axis being on his MCIC act conjunct, and they're both obviously at 0 degrees as well in fixed signs. So there's this. I found in doing the biopics that there is often a strong link to the nodes, and it gives that sort of fatedness to the character. Errol
I feel
Goodman and
like,
I were just talking about Frida Kahlo and Salma Hayek. It was her role of a lifetime. And I also often talk about Oscar Wilde being played by Stephen Fry. It says on the movie posters, the role that Stephen Fry was born to play, and they have very strong nodal connections. So I think this is it makes him interesting to me as well. I mean, I just think that um, there's in Scorpio, there's that the sting to the tail that he would have.
yeah, so I really like as you mentioned, these nodes on the IC MC axis, because I feel like he's letting go of his worldly mortality, IC, and moving to the acclaim, to the vision of him, to the great
Mm,
storyboard of what he portrays for himself and the legacy for him. And he can't get enough of that. And that's what he wants for the people too.
mm,
And going back to the sadness, I feel like even the movie Jim portrayed that in some of those scenes. There was the sadness felt of Andy in the movie, and you could recognize that as a Capricorn. myself, and as Jim and Andy were both Capricorns, born, as you mentioned, on the same day, or they have the same degree sun.
Mhm.
So we have a very powerful underbelly. Like we can be very humorous and we can be very entertaining and we can get the job done. But we know that it's through perseverance that we have had to hit rock bottom to reach the top of the mountain as Capricorns. And so we know what it's like to be at the very bottom and to be at the very top. But it's not about either of those things. It's not
Mm,
about being the bottom or the top. It's about showing up.
mm,
One more thing about Andy's chart, which I love, is that you can see that he's got his Jupiter in Capricorn as well. And so the likelihood is that he's a year of the rat, which are very shrewd, very cunning, and very good at business. So plotting these different extravagant frontiers, which he would put on in this world of fame, which was kind of new at that time. It was more new back those decades that he was performing. It was much more like new than it is now, I would say, to be able to pull tricks. It's a different era. But
mm.
anyway, it was very cunning and very year of the rat. It was like, I'm going to have longevity and I'm going to be shrewd in my maneuvers.
No, in Mirror Mirror, well, and even in my astrological practice, I pretty much almost exclusively concentrate on the hard aspects because hard aspects force us to do something, to make a change because it's too much tension. We can't hold on to that much tension. But we can see here that Andy Kaufman actually has a big old grand trine in his chart. And it's in the earth signs. But we wouldn't normally associate a comedian with earth. We might think that's more air, because of the communication, the fast deliveries, the being quick on your feet, and in thought and responding to an audience. But his grand trine is in that's supposed to be the stable, practical element of earth.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
That kind of thing, you could see that he was very visceral. It's like an earthy thing, and so that in the movie, we see that he did a lot of dancing. He did a lot of theatrical moving. He wasn't relying on his tales so much as his body work and his drumming, and he's a musician. So he's really getting the feeling of the vibration out there in his performance rather than just in his words.
That's a really good point. It's the physicality. And so we're going to look at Jim Carrey's synastry because what we're looking for now, because actors often have to learn new skills in order to portray somebody. Very famously, Robert Downey Jr. played the violin well enough to pull it off in Chaplin, to make it look like he could really play it. Tom Hulce really did master the piano to play Mozart in Amadeus. Margot Robbie really did practice ice skating 6 hours a day in order to play Tanya Harding and I, Tanya. So let's have a look at Jim Carrey and see, if we can start making some connections between the two. We already know they got their sons conjunct because they were born on the same day. But here is, so we still got Andy in the middle, and then we got Jim Carrey on the outside. And what I said about the nodes, there's a lot of nodal connections here. I mean, notably that North Node on Pluto, picking up Andy Kaufman's Mercury. And what you're saying, I think this might have been Jim Carrey's role after he did The Mask. I think that I'm not sure which came first, but I think this was, other than Mask, I think this is probably Jim Carrey's biggest movie.
I did on my old YouTube channel. I did a really good video on the perfection year for Jim Carrey for 1995 because he did Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, and The Mask. So they were all lunatic box office top smash hit sellers and
Right.
made him a superstar. And so then to go and do this film was such a change, such a shift, and such a dynamic. And so I think that's very interesting.
Sorry, I think this
But
movie came out in 1999, so it came out before The Mask. I just wanted to establish that.
The Mask was 1995.
Oh, was it? I thought you said, I heard the 2000s. Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
So maybe, but maybe the cable guy, I don't, cable guy came out before this one. But going to what you said about this nodes and Mercury and Pluto. So how Jim's nodes pick up the Mercury Pluto opposition in Andy's chart. There's a really great. I would like to direct people, if they're fans of this movie, to Netflix, because there's a great documentary called Jim and Andy, and they show a lot of behind the scenes and the makings of this movie in the documentary on Netflix. And part of it, they show how some of the grieving family members of Andy came to visit Jim on set while he was portraying Andy, so they could help deal with their grief, which is
Mm.
very North Node Pluto, South Node Mercury kind of situation.
Wow. I mean, I mean, he's, I mean, I'm a Jupiter and Saturn fan, and I'm just looking at that Jupiter with Jim Carrey's Mars in Capricorn. And did you mention Jim Carrey's Pluto on Andy Kaufman's moon? Did you mention that?
Wow, no, I didn't. That's it.
Okay,
That's
well,
the point, aren't they?
yeah, like they're exactly conjunct, and like Andy Kaufman, we can use the exact degree of the moon because we have a time chart for Jim Carrey as well. But there's a lot of action going on in here. So they got the Mars Jupiter conjunction, but they also have um, Jim Carrey's Jupiter is on Andy Kaufman's Mercury, and I think this really does kind of match up what you were saying about that zaniness because it's in Aquarius, and I think when you have a Jupiter plugged into someone else's Mercury, it's like the mimicry comes out. You can really, find whatever it is that person does, and you can imitate it very easily.
So it's like the higher and the lower. So you because Mercury's drawing drawing it down from Jupiter, if you will. And I feel that it's that the mouthpiece or the oratory piece, Mercury, and Jupiter's the higher consciousness of that person, and you'll be able
Mm.
to bring it through
Yeah.
like that.
Well, in mythology, because we were talking about Pluto, Mercury was the only god who could go between, could visit heaven and the underworld safely. And he was the god that came back and forth between those things. No other god could do that. So I think that's interesting. That
But
coming back to the trickster as well, he could slip in and out of worlds.
what I like about these experiences, especially with people like Jim, I feel like, and the entertainment world, I feel that they're great teachers for the learned eye, because we are all great channels. We are all able to bring forth these streams of consciousness from other people and other places, and when we see these experiences like movies or people who are just writing stories, we're learning about our spiritual abilities, which we're able to tap into, which we're just discovering are a reality for us to play with at this point.
That's a really good point. Now, do you have any connections to either Andy Kaufman or Jim Carrey that you would like to share?
In my personal experience, well, Jim's Mars is square my nodes and 1 degree from my ICMC.
Wow.
And
Okay. So there's might be
yeah,
some sort of an emotional, um, maybe connection with Jim Carrey.
well, I have, yeah, I feel big associations with him,
Mm.
and the Jupiter there of Andy squares my ascendant descendant. Jim's Venus squares my moon, so both their suns square my moon far, if you will. And so there's those ones which are, and also what's that? The Neptune of Andy is on my ascendant, and so yeah, there's a lot.
Wow. Okay. And the angular stuff too. That's an amazing connection. So I really do encourage people, if they're just learning astrology or just starting to get to grips with
Oh,
it,
so
that this is such a fun way to learn synastry, and synastry is how charts relate to each other. And we know that relationships can be romantic. We know that it can be friendship. It can be between family members. But synastry helps us to understand the nature of relationships. And so I encourage people to, well, of course, buy Mirror Mirror and have a look at it. But I deliberately chose quite a light touch with the interpretations, because I wanted people to think for themselves as well, but also the challenge of, thinking about your connections to the people that you're attracted to, what's there. And you mentioned Venus. Venus is the planet of attraction. Even though it was square your nodes, did you say?
Yeah, well, you could say like Jim Carrey is great in many ways, but at the same time, walking around being Jim Carrey all day is going to make you suffer in certain ways because he's such a lunatic at
Yeah.
first when you're a child. So you can't.
Unpredictable. Can you imagine? I don't know, something like trying to eat dinner with Jim Carrey. you know,
Yeah,
you
exactly. So
know,
you have to learn etiquette and values which are different to him, which is very interesting. I actually met another. Jim was one of my top heroes in all the way through growing up. And I mentioned professional wrestling a fair amount already with Jerry the King Lawler, who was in this movie. But 2 days ago, I was very fortunate enough to meet one of my other childhood heroes, who was a professional wrestler. And I looked at his chart, obviously, and his sun was conjunct my Chiron, 17 degrees of Gemini. And I see that Jim's moon is conjunct my Chiron there at 17 degrees of Gemini. So there's an interesting correlation. And also, Jim's Chiron sextiles my sun perfectly as well. So there's this Chiron thing that seems to be a theme. It can be healing for us, but we don't want to idealize people too much. But when you really love someone in the public eye, I think you look to discover their humanity and to feel that you can aspire to great things just like they have achieved and accomplished. I think that's what makes a great hero, that they encourage us to be able to establish ourselves in ways that we feel that we're able to. And I feel that that's really why there's a lot of healing in having people in the public eye, which we admire.
mm. And thinking about fame and or being well known or being highly successful in the public eye in some way. I mean, I think we might refer to such people as being lucky. And what we don't know is that when we weren't looking, when they didn't have our attention, they were working their socks off.
Hmm.
They were taking risks that we would never take. And I think that's kind of the message here with the Jupiter, plugged into Andy Kaufman's Mercury, is that there is this element of being in the right place at the right time for Jim Carrey. But as you and I know, there are no coincidences. This is astrology working. And I I used really tight orbs because I know what skeptics say. Oh, anything can, you put enough degrees between things, anything can happen. But these are tight orbs. They're not, we're not giving them the full 8 degrees that we would in an interpretation where we're top couple of degrees. So
So we should be. It's good to be tight with our orbs. Then there's no. We could say that we've been very. We're what's the word? We're scrutinizing.
yes, yeah, and I think it's important that astrologers, think. I know it can be a little bit painful sometimes to repeat yourself over and over again. How many times do I have to explain precession? How many times do I have to explain the twin argument? And again, but this is something that we have to live with because majority of society looks at us like we're flakes, when in reality, every single astrologer I know is highly educated, well-read, has been through that whole entire process of, they probably started off saying that astrology doesn't work, it's a load of rubbish, and have worked their way through it and have stuck with it. And yeah, you can bring in confirmation bias and everything else, but the fact that astrologers persist and astrology persists.
There's so many natural law things, like you mentioned like the common law, the common arguments that pop up, but there's so many great things that are just in our nature about astrological practice which we overlook. My partner had a cesarean the other day, and which cesarean, our dear friend Julian's like, that's from the age of Caesar, and they had to cut through 7 layers of skin.
I was going to say, it is not an easy operation.
But it's 7 is like the planets, and the 7 is the firmament.
Okay.
So the body mirrors the cosmology, and we can see this in the 7 planets, and there's the 7 days of the week, and this is the synthesis that many of us overlook, but we have to remind ourselves and everybody every day, because this will ground astrology back into everyday practice. I
Mm.
choose my socks by the 7 days of the week and the 7 planets. I'm wearing a more grey purple today because it's Saturn's day. I generally could wear this on Friday because it's a Venus-y kind of shirt as well. You know.
I also dress according to the days of the week. I got a special stripy shirt I wear for Wednesday, and I tend to wear pink on Fridays because Venus Day. So I tend to coordinate my colors as well. Today's Saturday, so I got a dark blue shirt on, not quite a Saturn color, but it's dark. Okay,
Yes.
so let's look at the transits for when the film was released, because so just to clarify, I used the release date for the first time the film was released, because some films, and this one as well, had a release date in the States first, and it had a release date in the United Kingdom. But the first release date is when people start writing reviews, that it's released to the public for the first time, so it's in the public eye. So let's have a look at those transits because they are bound to be interesting. So just to help us navigate and see where we are, we still got Andy Kaufman in the very middle, Jim Carrey on the in the center of it, on top of Andy Kaufman's chart, and then we have Man on the Moon, the release date, on the very outside. However, as in any release, I don't know the exact time, so that is a noon chart. So we have to be careful of the angles, and just know that that Cancerian moon could possibly be a Gemini moon as well. So we got to be careful. But I'll let you go first. What's your first notice?
The first thing that jumps out is the Uranus, actually in Aquarius, its home sign, in a conjunction with Jim's conjunction of Mercury, Jupiter, and Andy's Mercury. That's quite a big deal
That's
because
quite
it's put,
manic as well. It's quite, there's a lot of, you know,
yeah,
it was a very, it almost like seemed like maybe disjointed isn't quite the word, but it wasn't like your smooth running, I'm going to relax and watch a film kind of movie. It kept you awake.
yeah.
I
I
think,
imagine that the people in the audience might have wanted to watch that themselves once they got back home because it probably there was a lot of different things going on that evening that would have maybe distracted from the actual watching of the movie. But it was on the big screen regardless because all of that energy.
and funnily enough, I wanted to watch this film again because it's been a long time since I've seen it. I found it on DVD, but I don't even have a DVD player anymore, so I wasn't able to rewatch it recently. But I just that's just my predominant feeling, that Uranian, I don't know what to expect kind of feeling. Like I keep saying, those nodes keep popping up, and now here we have a different kind of connection. We have the South Node on Jim Carrey's Saturn, and on Andy Kaufman's Mars, still in Aquarius, and it's tying in with the Neptune as well. So
It's also
we go ahead. Sorry.
I just was a little kind of like you had already said that the moon could have been in Gemini, but this was actually the solstice. So it was the sun had just gone into Capricorn, and according to this chart, the moon had just gone into Cancer. So it was the man in the moon on a full moon, and so I think that's pretty cool, right? And it's the ICMC as well. So the sun's in a premium place. If you're going to elect a chart to get for a couple of Capricorns to get seen, it's on the solstice of the sun by by the solstice degree at the MC. Right.
Well spotted. And yeah, that's really, really good. And of course we got Jim Carrey's moon in Cancer. And where's Andy Kaufman's moon is in Virgo. So it would have a lot of lunar focus because of the title. And and as I said at the very start, it had a great soundtrack. And there was something else I was looking at, the Pluto on Chiron. So the transiting Pluto on Andy Kaufman's Chiron.
Oh yeah.
So obviously this was released well after Andy Kaufman's death, but it still has that theme of, is he or isn't he dead for real? That
Yeah.
comes up, that is something that persists among,
That's interesting that we have this now. I mean, it's a little bit detached from our theme. The Pluto Chiron conjunction, in the coming we're soon to embark upon a Pluto Chiron square in the coming years. So I don't think that will have anything to do with this movie, though. But the antithesis of the conjunction is like, can it be healing for someone who is pretending to be dead? Is that healing for them? It's
Mm,
just an interesting idea to ponder when you see that energy. Or, for instance, if he is actually dead, and people are wondering, is he or isn't he? Is it beneficial for them? It's just an interesting idea, but it's in Sagittarius, which has got a lot of life. It's got a lot of revival. It's got a lot of wisdom to it, and it's got a lot of wit. So I think there's a lot of beauty to the whole mystery.
yeah, that's really well said. Um, and there were a few more things on the release. We got Venus transiting Neptune, a little bit wide of orb, but we got that to deal with too. I mean, I just,
Also, like it was. I'm just looking at that Chiron. It says, as you said, it's his Chiron return. So it's almost like he was born with something that needed to be released
mm,
upon that return as well. So like this is a part of his gift that he was sharing this movie, even though that Andy didn't star in the movie. His story, his portrayal, the myth, the legend, it's
mm.
his medicine to share. It's what he came here to do and to be.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think Venus transiting the Jim Carrey's Neptune as the it's not it's a little bit wide of orbit. I was just going to say that he brought not just this manic energy, but I can't help it. I think Jim Carrey looked really good in that film. You know,
And at first, was it? So this is really great. This is what I was looking for because it wasn't popular. I was just looking for the aspect. It wasn't popular at first, this film. It took a lot of time and years. And so here we got on the transit Neptune, which is it's valuable way down the line, or it was valuable at the initial time, but not later. So it's like what was like it weathers the storm in a sense, this film, and became more rich through time. And so the Neptune of the day that it was released is conjunct the Jim Carrey's Saturn, which is all about time
oh, very
in,
good,
in
very good.
Aquarius. So,
Excellent.
10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, this film's more popular now than it was back then.
Yeah, if you could find it on Netflix or on Amazon Prime, I couldn't find it, but uh, yeah. Anyway, Philip, I really enjoyed chatting with you. You always have such a poet's heart, and you
Thank
always have the really good descriptions, and you think well on your feet. And obviously, you've dealt with lots of different people, and it's just always a pleasure talking to you. And I'm so happy for your new baby and your new family. And I hope that you well, I'm not going to tell you to keep making babies, but I hope that you continue to thrive and continue to grow. And I hope that I can help you um, sort of rebuild your YouTube um, channel. So please do like and subscribe to this channel as well as Philip's. Give us both a little bit of a boost, a thumbs up, give us a comment. Tell me what movie you'd like. Sorry, it's got to be a biopic. It's got to be about a real life person. Tell me which biopic you'd like to see one of my super astrology guests talk about. And on that note, I have a lot of good guests lined up. I have the Oxford astrologer who's going to come on the show. Errol Goodman, I spoke to today. And I got a whole lot of astrologers that really want to join this podcast. So, Philip, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining.
Absolutely. It's an absolute honor. Thank you so much for having me and for us talking about such a brilliant subject and for you being such a brilliant host. I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Okay, Philip, we can stop it there. I'll trim off the ends and yeah.
Sweet.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun. I didn't doubt it was going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to it all week. But like, I mean, it's so fun because I don't really get too many opportunities to spin the yarn with somebody who gets it like you. So it's really, really great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry I can't talk to you longer, but if you
That's all right.
have time and you want to chat, just let me know and we can set up another Zoom and have a little gossip or whatever. But
That sounds fun.
I have a student, so I have to skedaddle.
Well, enjoy your student, and thank you so much again. And I'll catch you down the line.
Okay, take care.
Cheerio.
Cheerio. Bye bye.
Bye bye.